My name is Amanda Brooks. I'm 32 years old. This Christmas, my family was at our country house near the winter resort outside Chicago, the one my mother calls the Lodge when she wants to sound fancy. In front of everyone, she handed me a glossy red bag from Mom and loving sister. Inside was a certificate for an exclusive cruise for singles 30 plus and a pastel self-help book titled, How to Come to Terms with Being Single by 35. My sister Chloe giggled into her champagne. Mom said she was just looking out for my future. My dad hid behind his whiskey. Chloe's fiancé, Aiden, couldn't even look me in the eye. They all pretended it was a harmless joke. But what none of them knew as they laughed about my lonely 30s was that I'd been hiding one small detail from them for over a year. Before I tell you how my entire family exploded that night, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you want to know what happened next. 9 months before that Christmas dinner, I stood in a white dress in a tiny chalet in the Colorado mountains and waited for my family to walk through the door. My husband's name is Lucas Bennett. He works in digital security, talks about firewalls the way other people talk about weather, and somehow manages to make even the most boring tech stuff sound like safety. When he first suggested a small winter wedding in Colorado, I pictured movie scenes, snow, pine trees, a fireplace, the people I loved most in the world gathered in one warm little space. I truly thought my parents would love it. A tasteful, intimate ceremony, as Mom always says she prefers. Not like those tacky destination weddings she complains about. The chalet we chose was simple but perfect. Dark wood beams, big windows looking out over a line of fir trees, a stone fireplace in the center. Outside, snow fell in slow, lazy flakes. Inside, the air smelled like pine and coffee and the vanilla candles Lucas's mom insisted on bringing. I handled the invitations myself. No online template, no quick group email. I wanted my family to see, on paper, how serious and real this was. I ordered thick cream cardstock with embossed edges. Wrote each name by hand. For my parents, Vivian and Gregory Brooks on one envelope. For my sister, Miss Chloe Brooks on another. I chose a dark blue ink because Mom always said black looked too harsh for celebrations. I double-checked every address. I printed tracking labels. I drove to the DHL office on my lunch break and stood in line rehearsing what Mom might say when she opened the envelope. Maybe Chloe would call and shriek into the phone, "You're getting married in the snow?" That's actually kind of cute. I paid extra to require a signature on delivery. It felt important, like I needed proof that this time I had done everything right. No room for my mother to say she never saw the email or didn't get the memo. For good measure, that night I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and sent digital versions too. The DHL tracking updated 2 days later, delivered. Signed for. I clicked the details. There it was, my parents' delivery and my sister's delivery, both marked as received. I remember tracing the name on Chloe's, her signature. My stomach fluttered. She had it. She knew. And then, nothing. No excited phone call from Mom demanding to know who my florist was or whether I'd considered a different dress silhouette. No text from Dad with a thumbs-up emoji or a dry "Congratulations, kiddo." No snarky voice note from Chloe asking if the mountain Wi-Fi would be good enough for posting photos. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. I told myself they were busy. That my dad's construction company was in the middle of a big project. That Mom was probably planning some elaborate surprise and didn't want to ruin it. When the silence stretched longer, I started making excuses out loud, mostly to Lucas. "They're terrible with email," I said, refreshing my inbox anyway. "Mail gets lost all the time, you know how it is." Mom hates flying. She's probably trying to work up the nerve before she tells me. Lucas would nod, his eyes kind. Or he'd say softly, "They're processing." It's a big change. On the morning of our wedding, I woke up in the chalet guest room and checked my phone before I even sat up. No missed calls. No messages. Just a weather alert and a couple of promotional emails. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. I thought maybe they were going to burst in at the last second, like in a movie. My mother complaining about the altitude, my father shaking Lucas's hand, Chloe posing by the window in some ridiculous fur coat. But they didn't. We got married at sunset in front of the fireplace. Lucas's parents were there, his younger sister, and two of his friends from work. The officiant mispronounced my last name, and I almost corrected him. Brooks, not Brooks, but halfway through the word I realized I was about to become Bennett anyway, and I let it go. I smiled for the photos. I really meant it. I was happy. I held Lucas's hands and promised him a lifetime of honesty. But somewhere underneath the joy was this hollow place where my family should have been. Later, back in my hotel room, still in my wedding dress, I opened my email again. Still nothing. I scrolled through old messages from Mom, years of micromanaging and criticism and unsolicited advice, and picked one at random. Maybe she really didn't receive it, I whispered to myself, even though I had seen the DHL confirmation and the read receipts on the emails. By the time we flew home, I had a list in my head, 15, 20 different reasons why my parents and Chloe hadn't shown up. Mom always saves her big speeches for when everyone's forks are down and she knows she has a captive audience. So after the Single by 35 book and the awkward laughter, she stood up, smoothing her cream sweater like she was about to accept an award. "I want to make a toast," she announced. Her voice rose above the soft Christmas music. "This year is very special for our family." Chloe straightened in her chair automatically, like a spotlight had just switched on. Aiden's hand slid to rest on the back of her chair, his thumb brushing the wood, not her shoulder. My dad looked at my mother like he was bracing for impact. "This," Mom said, pausing for effect, "is the year of the bride." She smiled at Chloe, slow and deliberate. "My beautiful daughter is getting married in June. A perfect wedding. 250 guests. At the best hotel in Chicago. Everything will be exactly as it should be. Classical quartet, plated dinner, proper bar, tasteful flowers. No experiments." The last word hung in the air, and I felt it land on me like a slap, even though no one said my name. Chloe glowed, eyes shining. "Mom," she laughed, pretending to be modest. "Stop, you're embarrassing me." But she wasn't embarrassed. She was soaking it up like sunlight. Mom leaned slightly closer to Aiden's parents across the table. "We've already booked the ballroom," she added. "You won't find a more elegant venue in the city. It will be the kind of wedding people talk about for years." I stared at my plate. For a second, the image of our little mountain chalet flashed in my mind. No quartet. No ballroom. Just us. Mom raised her glass higher. "To Chloe," she stated, "and to the perfect wedding our family has always dreamed of." Everyone murmured, "To Chloe," and glasses clinked. Mine stayed on the table. My fingers were wrapped so tightly around the stem I could feel the cool bite of the glass, but I didn't lift it. Then she turned to me. "And you," she added lightly, like an afterthought they'd just remembered to include. "Your sister's wedding will be perfect. When is it your turn, Amanda?" The room went quiet. Even Chloe stopped smiling and watched me, waiting for my usual shrug, my usual deflecting joke. I knew exactly what they expected. The script had been written years ago. "Oh, you know me, Mom. Maybe someday." Or, "I have my career." Something small. Something that made me the easy, manageable daughter again. Instead, I heard myself say, very clearly, it already was. My own voice surprised me. It sounded steady. Like I'd rehearsed it, even though I hadn't. My mother blinked. "Excuse me." I lifted my eyes to hers. "It already was my turn," I repeated. "I've been married for 9 months. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. I saw it hit them one by one, the confusion, the calculation, the instinctive denial. Aiden's fork froze halfway to his mouth. My dad's glass stopped just short of his lips. Chloe's fingers tightened around her phone like she was checking whether this was a prank. Then Mom laughed. A short, sharp sound. "Don't be ridiculous," she said. "This isn't funny." "But I'm not joking," I replied. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "I got married in February. In Colorado. His name is Lucas Bennett." "That's not true," Mom snapped. The brightness was gone from her voice now, replaced by something tighter. "You would never keep something like that from your family." "Well," Chloe cut in, clutching her napkin dramatically. "Apparently she would." "Are you seriously doing this now?" Her eyes shone, but it was outrage, not tears. You're trying to steal my evening because you're jealous. Jealous? Of the cruise? Of the book? Of the perfect bride crown she'd been polishing since she was 15? I'm not trying to steal anything, I said. I'm just answering our mother's question. Dad set his glass down harder than he meant to. The base hit the table with a dull thud. Enough, he stated. His face had gone pink, the way it always did when he was caught between anger and embarrassment. This isn't funny, Amanda. You think it makes us look like bad parents in front of the Lockharts, is that it? I turned to him slowly. What? He exhaled sharply through his nose. Making up stories about some secret wedding so you can, what? Punish us? Make a scene at Christmas dinner? Your mother didn't raise you that way. I'm not making anything up, I said again, quieter this time. But he was already shaking his head, looking over at Aiden's parents with a stiff little apologetic smile, like he needed to distance himself from me. She's always been dramatic, he told them. Don't take it seriously. If something as important as a wedding had happened, we would know. She would have called. The words landed like a physical blow. Chloe sighed loudly, pressing the back of her hand to her forehead like a bad soap actress. This is exactly what I was afraid of, she muttered. You just can't stand that my wedding is finally happening, so you're inventing your own. Mom nodded, lips thin. We are not discussing this further tonight, she declared. You are not married, Amanda. Your father is right, you would have called. You would have invited us. We're your family. I stared at all of them, at the expensive plates, the glittering glasses, the perfect Christmas decor. I felt something inside me shift from hurt to something colder, sharper, and much more dangerous. I looked at the rim of my plate and thought of Lucas. Lucas never argued with feelings when it came to work. He followed logs, timestamps, IP addresses. When a client insisted, we never clicked that link, he'd quietly pull up the access history, show them exact dates and times. No emotions. Just proofs. People can lie, he told me once, leaning back in his chair after a long day. But systems? They leave footprints. Earlier this year, my parents had asked for his help setting up their smart home stuff, as Dad called it. Cloud storage, synced devices, cameras at the front door. I remembered Lucas on the couch with Dad, patiently explaining the admin account, backups, how nothing ever really disappeared. Even if you delete it, he'd said, there's always a trace somewhere. Back then, Mom had laughed and called him paranoid. But now, paranoia sounded a lot like protection. I felt my phone against my thigh, a small, rectangular weight in my pocket. Lucas was back in Portland, probably on the couch with his laptop open, half watching some sci-fi show, waiting for my update about how Christmas was going. Under the tablecloth, where no one could see, I slid my hand into my pocket and unlocked my phone. My fingers were shaking, but not from fear anymore. From something like adrenaline. I opened our chat. The last message from him was a heart and a text me if you need backup. I stared at those words for a second, the hum of conversation returning faintly around me, Chloe whining to Aiden, my mother insisting we change the subject, my father making a stiff joke to the Lockharts about holiday drama. Then I typed a single word. Now. My thumb hovered for half a heartbeat, then tapped send. The message ticked over to delivered. A tiny thing, one word on a screen. But pressing that button felt like flipping a switch inside myself. I put the phone face down in my lap and looked up. Mom was already moving on, talking about floral arrangements and seating charts. Chloe was scrolling through her phone, probably checking her notifications. Dad had reclaimed his whiskey glass, his part in the scene apparently finished. None of them had any idea that the same man they pretended didn't exist, the husband they refused to acknowledge, also happened to be the one person in their orbit who knew exactly how their systems worked, where their data went, and what they'd tried to bury. I sat up a little straighter and was going to show them what they had done. The Brooks living room was designed to impress, not relax. High ceilings, stone fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the snow. And above the mantel, like a shrine to modern taste, hung the huge flat-screen panel my parents bragged about to anyone who stepped inside. Right then it was playing some looping Christmas playlist, soft snowflakes drifting over stock images of cozy cabins, generic jazz carols in the background. It was the kind of thing Mom put on for ambience because silence made her nervous. I forced myself to sit still. And minute later, I could feel my phone buzzing faintly against my leg, then again. I didn't need to look. If Lucas said he'd handle something, he handled it. At the table, Mom was still talking about Chloe's centerpiece options. Peonies are out of season, but for Chloe we'll make it work, she said, smiling at Mrs. Lockhart. When it's your only daughter's wedding, you don't cut corners. Only daughter? God, it almost made me laugh. I glanced toward the living room. The screen was visible from where I sat, framed by a garland. For a second, nothing changed. The music kept playing, the fake snow kept falling. But then, the image flickered. The playlist stuttered once, twice, like a scratched CD. The music cut out mid-saxophone and the screen went black. Conversation around the table faltered. What the my father muttered, turning halfway in his chair. Damn thing. Mom frowned. Gregory, I told you that Wi-Fi. The black screen brightened. The familiar home interface didn't appear. No streaming service, no cable menu. Instead, a simple gray screen popped up with a login window. In the top corner, I recognized the logo Lucas had helped my parents set up when they finally moved everything to the cloud. Brooks Home Archive. My heart kicked. A cursor blinked in the password field. Then letters began to appear one by one as if typed by invisible hands. Is the TV updating? Chloe asked, annoyed. Ugh, not now. The login processed, the spinning icon circling once, twice. Then, with a soft chime, the main dashboard opened. Not movies. Not Spotify. Folders. Neat blue and gray folders filled the screen, arranged in rows. Family video calls. Email backups. Security cam door. My parents stared at the screen, frowning. Mrs. Lockhart looked politely confused. Aiden set his napkin down slowly. That's our cloud, Dad said cautiously. Vivian, did you? Mom's voice sharpened. Turn that off, Gregory. I don't want, whatever this is, up when we have guests. But the cursor was already moving on its own. Down, down, to Documents Archive. Click. Subfolders bloomed open. Finances, legal, house papers, mail scans. The cursor slid to mail scans and opened it. Something cold and electric moved through me. Lucas had found the backup administrator account, the one we'd created when he set all this up, just in case they forget their password. I'd written the username down in my planner almost a year ago and forgotten it. Clearly, he hadn't. Inside mail scans, there were dozens of PDF icons. Bills. Notices. Letters. And near the top, because my parents were obsessed with sorting by date, January 29th, 2024 DHL delivery invites. My mother's name, my father's name, and Chloe's initial were in the tiny file name below it. The cursor selected it. The PDF opened full screen. And there it was. A scan of the DHL receipt I'd kept for my records and emailed to my parents' shared account for their files, like Lucas had suggested. At the top, the DHL logo. Below it, the Chicago address of my parents' house. 2 line items, one for each envelope. Under, received by a signature. Chloe's signature. Even zoomed out, I recognized it. Curled C, looping V from Brooks, the same way she'd written it on every school notebook growing up. The cursor moved to the zoom icon. The signature enlarged, taking up a quarter of the screen. The date beneath it glowed, February 1st, 2024. Is that? Aiden started, leaning forward. Chloe, that looks like. Chloe's chair scraped slightly against the floor. What is this? She demanded. Her voice sounded thinner now, less sure. Why is that up there? Amanda, did you? I let the silence answer for me. Mom's eyes were hard, fixed on the television. Gregory, she said again, slower, turn that off. There's something wrong with it. Dad fiddled with the remote, pressing buttons that did absolutely nothing. The connection wasn't his to control tonight. The cursor exited the PDF and backed out to the folder list again. Then it moved up. Back to the main dashboard. For a moment it hovered between email backups and family video calls. My palms were damp. I curled them into fists under the tablecloth, nails biting into my own skin to keep myself grounded. The cursor clicked email backups. The screen shifted to a simple layout. On the left, a column of email addresses. On the right, options and settings. One address was highlighted in bold, vivian.brooks@gmail.com. My mother's personal inbox. Her lips parted. "Gregory," she whispered, "why is my—" The cursor opened it. Rows of messages appeared, but the cursor didn't linger there. It darted to the top right corner, to a small gear icon labeled Settings. The room felt strangely small now, despite the high ceilings. Even the fire hiss seemed muffled under the weight of all those eyes watching the same screen. Settings opened. The cursor went straight to Filters and Rules. I didn't have to guide Lucas. He knew exactly where he was going. The filters list popped up. There were several standard-looking rules: spam filters, work folders. And then, halfway down, highlighted in pale gray like it was nothing special, was one with a name that made my skin prickle. Filter name: Amanda Wedding. The cursor selected it. A small window appeared, showing the details. Conditions: from Amanda Brooks. Keywords in subject or body: wedding and invitation. Action: immediately delete. Skip inbox. Do not notify. Do not move to trash. At the bottom, created February 3rd, 2024, 10:14 a.m. 2 days after the DHL delivery. I watched my mother's face as she read. Her eyes flicked across the lines once, twice. Her cheeks, usually so carefully colored, went pale under the makeup. Mrs. Lockhart leaned closer to her husband. "Vivian," she said softly, "what is that?" Chloe let out a weak laugh. "That can't be real," she insisted. "Mom? Tell them that's not real." Dad's jaw clenched. His eyes moved slowly from the screen to me. "What are you doing?" he asked, low and dangerous, like I had hacked into something forbidden. I didn't answer him. The cursor, as if in response, scrolled down to the action line and hovered over immediately delete. Then it moved back to filter name, Amanda Wedding, as if underlining it. My heart was beating so loudly I could barely hear the rest of the room, but I saw everything: Aiden's stunned expression, the Lockhart's confusion, the way Chloe's fingers dug into the edge of the tablecloth. Then, Mom finally found her voice. "This is some kind of mistake," she said. "Gregory, I don't know what this is. It's obviously some glitch. Filters get created all the time without you doing it?" I asked quietly. She whipped her head toward me, eyes flashing. "Don't you dare speak to me in that tone. I don't know what your little hacker boyfriend is doing, but—" "Husband," I corrected. My voice came out steady. "And he's not doing anything except showing you your own settings." Dad shook his head, but his gaze darted back to the creation date, February 3rd, 2024. 2 days after Chloe signed for my invitations. They had looked at my name on that DHL slip. Then my mother had opened her email and created a rule to make sure she never had to see my wedding again, not even in pixels. Chloe was still talking when I realized she was already trying to wriggle free. "That filter could be anything," she said, her voice shrill. "Apps do weird things, right? Maybe it auto-created or whatever. People get spam all the time. This doesn't mean Mom." "It has my name on it," I interrupted. "And the word wedding." She flung her hand toward the screen. "Then it's some glitch. Why would I sign for something and then Mom make a filter? That doesn't even make sense." I felt my phone buzz once against my leg. "Lucas." I didn't need to read the message. The cursor on the TV moved before I could reach for it. Out of filters and rules. Back to the main list. Then down to security cam door. My dad frowned deeper. "Turn that off," he repeated. "We don't need to watch." The folder opened. Clips lined the screen, each with a timestamp, each a little frozen square of their front porch. Winter. Spring. Packages. Visitors. The cursor scrolled quickly through the dates, then stopped on one, January 29th, 2024. 2 days before the filter. The same day as the DHL receipt. My breath caught. The clip opened, full screen. I knew that angle instantly. The door camera pointed down at the front step. Snowbanks on either side, gray sky, the street beyond lined with buried cars. A delivery truck idled at the curb. A courier in a red jacket climbed the steps, 2 flat envelopes in his gloved hand. He pressed the doorbell. The faint chime echoed through our dining room speakers like it was happening live. After a beat, the door swung open. There she was, Chloe, wearing black leggings, an oversized sweatshirt with some gym logo, hair in a messy bun. Phone in one hand, pen in the other. "That's you," Aiden said quietly, like he needed to confirm it out loud. Chloe said nothing. On screen, the courier held out his tablet. She signed with a quick practiced flourish. The same curled C, the same long tail on the S. The camera caught it clearly as she handed the device back. Then he gave her the envelopes. She looked straight down at them. The camera didn't see her eyes, but it had a perfect view of the top envelope where my name was printed in navy script, Amanda Brooks. She tilted the stack slightly, reading. Her mouth twisted. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Disgust. That could be anything, Chloe muttered. That could be. Lucas zoomed. The name on the envelope grew larger, clearer. My handwriting. My surname. No mistaking it. Chloe shoved the envelopes under her arm, said something to the courier the mic didn't catch, and closed the door. For a moment, the porch was empty. Then the camera caught her again, reappearing from the side path. Not heading into the house. Heading toward the row of trash cans lined up by the sidewall. She lifted the lid of the nearest one with her elbow, pulled the top envelope free, and, without even opening it, tore it cleanly in half. Then into quarters. The pieces fluttered into the black bag below. She did the same with the second envelope, faster this time. She didn't even glance toward the camera. The lid slammed shut. The clip ended. Nobody spoke. The only sounds were the crackle of the fire and someone's uneven breathing. I realized after a moment that it was mine. Chloe finally found her voice. "I thought it was junk," she said, too quickly. "You know how much random crap we get delivered? Credit card offers, catalogs." I probably didn't even notice. "You read my name," I stated. My voice came out weirdly calm. I glanced at it. "That doesn't mean I knew it was your wedding." The cursor had already backed out to the folder list again. It slid into a different directory I hadn't noticed before, social backups. My mother turned on my father like he'd personally summoned the cursor. "I told you I didn't want all of this connected," she hissed. "I told you I don't like things spying on us in our own house." "It's not spying," I said. "You asked Lucas to set this up. Remember? So all your important memories would be in one place." The folder opened. Inside were subfolders labeled with device names and app logos. One of them had Chloe's handle. The cursor clicked. A list of dates and short file names appeared. Right in the middle. Story January 29th, 2024. "I don't save my stories," Chloe snapped. "They disappear. Everyone knows." "This is the auto backup," I said. "The one Lucas explained. The one Mom said was genius, because then nothing would ever get lost." The story opened. The aspect ratio changed to vertical. The sound jumped up in volume, the tinny echo of phone audio filling the room. On screen, we saw Chloe again, this time from the front-facing camera. She was in the kitchen, hair still in a messy bun, filtered skin glowing. She held her phone high and pouted for a moment before speaking. "Guys," she said, affecting that fake influencer tone she used in all her stories, "look what just came in the mail from my adorable big sister." She turned the camera toward the counter. There, lying on the marble, was my envelope. The second one, to my parents. The camera zoomed in just enough to see Vivian and Gregory Brooks, wedding invitation. Apparently, Chloe continued, laughing, "We have been invited to a rustic wedding in a barn in the middle of the snow." She flipped the envelope over, showing the Colorado postmark, then back again. She hadn't even opened it. It was still sealed. "Can you imagine Mom," she said, swinging the camera back to her own face, "standing around in boots with hay on the floor?" "I'm dying. Don't worry, we won't let her embarrass herself." She winked. "Someone off camera, Mom," I realized, recognizing the faint outline of her cream sweater at the edge of the frame, said something we couldn't quite hear, and Chloe snorted. "Anyway," she finished, "stay tuned, because if I have to drag my mother away from this nonsense, I will." The story ended. The screen froze on Chloe's laughing face for a second, then minimized back to the file list. My hands were ice cold. That was a joke, Chloe said, but her voice had dropped lower. I deleted that. It was. I don't even remember. People joke about weddings all the time. Mrs. Lockhart was staring at her, eyes narrowed. You said you didn't receive anything, she said slowly. You told us your sister hadn't even set a date. Chloe started. Stop talking, my mother cut in sharply. Just stop, Chloe. Her lipstick looked too bright against how pale she'd gotten. She wasn't looking at the Lockharts anymore. She wasn't looking at me either. She was looking at the screen. The cursor moved again, out of social backups, into family video calls. For a moment it hovered between dates. My father found his voice just long enough to say, enough of this circus, but it was thin. No weight behind it. The cursor ignored him. Down to February 3rd, 2024 kitchen audio. I remembered that date. I hadn't known why at the time, just that there had been a long, aching silence on my phone. I'd sent another email that morning, a gentle follow-up, just confirming you got the invitations. It would mean a lot to have you there. They never responded. The audio file opened. There was no video this time, just a simple black background and a moving progress bar. The sound came through the room speakers, the faint clink of dishes, the hum of the refrigerator, the muffled acoustics of our kitchen. Then, my mother's voice. I got another email from her, she said. She's persistent, I'll give her that. Chloe's voice answered, closer to the mic, about the barn wedding. A small rustle, like someone folding paper. Mom sighed. Yes. She attached the invitation again. Colorado in February. Can you imagine your grandmother out there slipping on ice and God knows where? Chloe snorted. I mean, if she wants to play pioneer bride, let her. You don't have to go. I can't encourage this, Mom replied. It's embarrassing. What will people think? My eldest daughter getting married in some chalet? With no one there? No proper reception? It looks pathetic. There was a pause. A cupboard opened, shut. So, what are you going to do? Chloe asked. Another sigh. Running water. Nothing, Mom said. We'll do nothing. It's easier to pretend there were no invitations. If anyone asks, we never got them. And if she really wanted us there, she'd pick up the phone like an adult and come to Chicago, not drag us off to the wilderness. She already sent DHL, Chloe reminded her. And the emails. You literally made that filter. A short, low laugh I recognized all too well. My mother's I'm being clever laugh. Exactly, she said. We'll let the filter handle it. Out of sight, out of mind. She'll get over it. The clink of a spoon in a mug. The audio crackled for a second, then Chloe again, a little quieter. And if she doesn't, she asked. Then she doesn't, Mom answered. Chloe, focus on your wedding. That's what matters. You're the one who's doing things properly. There was a small scraping sound, like someone's hand sliding over the counter. I just don't want her ruining mine, Chloe said. Like, making it about her. You know she will. Well, Mom replied, now you know what to do with her emails. The audio clicked off. Silence crashed over the dining room so hard it felt physical. The screen stayed black except for the little white pause icon. For a second, I could see our reflections in it. Mom stiff and rigid, Dad frozen with his hand around his glass, Chloe wide-eyed and pale, Aiden looking at his fiancée like he'd never seen her before. Mr. and Mrs. Lockhart caught in the middle of a dinner they definitely hadn't signed up for. The fire crackled. A fork slipped from someone's fingers and hit a plate with a sharp metallic sound that made me jump. Then, from the far side of the table, Aiden spoke. I saw it, he said quietly. Everyone turned to him like they'd forgotten he was even there. He looked different. Not the polished, easygoing guy who'd walked in earlier, laughing at my dad's jokes and kissing Chloe's cheek for show. His face had gone a shade paler, and his jaw was locked so tightly I could see the muscles ticking. I saw a card, he continued, looking straight at Chloe. In your drawer. Months ago. Chloe's head snapped toward him. What are you talking about? In your dresser, he said. Top drawer. There was a card with a snowflake on it and Colorado something. I remember because it had a date on it. February. And Amanda's name. He swallowed, eyes narrowing like he was replaying it in his mind. I asked you what it was, he went on. You said it was an old wedding invitation for Amanda. He glanced at me, but that it had been canceled. You said they couldn't afford it. That it was one of her little fantasies. Chloe's mouth opened and closed. You're remembering it wrong. I was joking. You know I joke. Aiden shook his head. You said it like it was fact. You said her wedding wasn't happening. You laughed. He turned back to the screen for a second. My name on the DHL slip, the filter, the story. Then back to Chloe. And I believed you, he said. For 9 months, I believed you. My father cleared his throat, trying to regain control. Aiden, son, you know how misunderstandings happen. We don't need to. This isn't a misunderstanding. Aiden cut in, not taking his eyes off Chloe. His voice wasn't loud, but it was steady in a way I'd never heard from him before. You saw her invitation. You told your mother. You both decided to pretend it didn't exist. And you told me that her wedding was canceled because she didn't have the money. You made me feel sorry for you. For being the only daughter doing things properly. Chloe's eyes were glossy now, but I couldn't tell if it was shame or just the horror of losing control. I was protecting Mom, she said. You heard the audio. She didn't want to go. But you knew it was real, he said. You knew she was getting married. You watched your future sister-in-law plan a wedding and then made fun of it online and threw her invitation in the trash. He looked at me then, and there was actual pain in his expression. I'm sorry, he said. I should have asked you. I should have. I don't know. Not just taken one explanation and moved on. That's on me. It was such a simple thing, those 2 words, I'm sorry, that for a second I felt my throat tighten. Chloe must have seen it, because she latched onto him like a drowning person. Aiden, come on, she pleaded, reaching for his hand. This is insane. It's Christmas. She's blowing everything out of proportion. You know how Amanda is. But he pulled his hand back. Very calmly, he reached for her left hand where it rested near her wine glass. For a second I thought he was going to squeeze it, reassure her. Instead, he took the engagement ring between his fingers and slid it off. The tiny scraping sound of metal against skin seemed louder than the storm outside. Are you kidding me? Chloe whispered. What are you doing? Aiden held the ring in his palm and looked at it like it was something he didn't recognize. I don't want to marry someone who can do this, he said. Not to her. Not to anyone. This is cruel, Chloe. It's not just a joke or a misunderstanding. It's deliberate. It's childish. Her face crumpled in disbelief. You're breaking up with me? Because of her. Because of you, he said. His voice broke just slightly on the last word, but he steadied it. Because you lied. For months. To me, to your parents, to my parents. And you're still lying, even with all of this playing on a screen in front of you. He closed his hand around the ring once, like it hurt to even touch it, then set it down carefully on the table between them. The diamond caught the light from the tree and threw a small, useless sparkle onto the white tablecloth. Mr. Lockhart, Victor, had been silent so far, watching everything with the expression of a man adding up numbers in his head. Now he pushed his chair back slightly. Son, he said, his voice low, are you sure this is a conversation you want to have right now? Yes, Aiden answered, still looking at Chloe. Because I've been pretending not to see things for too long. Chloe's voice went high and thin. You can't be serious. We have deposits. We have a venue. We have invitations. She stopped herself there, eyes flicking to me for half a second. Aiden noticed. Exactly, he said softly. My father stepped in then, his tone shifting to business mode, the one he used in meetings and negotiations. Let's all calm down, he said. Young people fight. You're upset. We can discuss this tomorrow in private. There's no need to make any drastic decisions tonight. Victor's gaze slid from his son to my parents, then to me, then back to Gregory. I'm not sure drastic is the word I'd use, he said. What I've heard and seen tonight is revealing. Something in his voice made my mother stiffen. Victor, obviously there's been a misunderstanding, she said, forcing a brittle laugh. Families are messy. You know how it is. We didn't mean for you to get dragged into. But we are dragged in, he interrupted, and the easy warmth he'd had earlier over appetizers was gone. When you invited us for Christmas, Gregory, you said family was at the heart of everything you do. That you treat people right. That your word means something. My father swallowed. It does, he said. It still does. Victor glanced at the television, the DHL receipt, the filter settings still faintly visible, the paused audio file timeline, then back at him. I just watched your family bury your eldest daughter's wedding, he said calmly. I listened to your wife decide on tape that it would be easier to pretend it never happened. I listened to your younger daughter plan her own wedding on top of that lie and ask you to help keep it going. He leaned back slightly, folding his hands on the table. If you'll do that to your own child, he continued, what am I supposed to believe you'll do to a business partner when it's convenient? The words landed harder than any shout. My father's face went from pink to a flat, unhealthy gray. Now hold on, he said. You're making this sound like some sort of moral. It is a moral issue, Victor stated. And a trust issue. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar project. Shared liability. Public image. Do you really think I can stand next to you at a groundbreaking ceremony after seeing this? Mom reached for her wine glass like she needed an anchor. Victor, be serious, she said. You're not going to blow up a project over some private family problems. Victor turned to her, eyes cool. When private family problem reveals that a man is willing to lie about something this big, yes, he said. Yes, I am. My father's chair scraped back an inch. We haven't lied to you about anything in business, he protested. This has nothing to do with. It has everything to do with it, Victor cut in. Integrity isn't a switch you flip on and off depending on whether money is involved. Either you have it or you don't. He looked at Aiden. If you're ending this engagement, do it clearly. Aiden didn't even hesitate. It's over, he told Chloe. I'm sorry, but I don't want to spend my life with someone who thinks other people's feelings are props. Tears finally spilled over Chloe's lashes. You're choosing her over me, she whispered, voice shaking. After everything, after all Mom and Dad have done for your family, your business. My business, Victor corrected mildly, was fine before this partnership, and it will be fine after. He turned back to my father. I'll have my lawyer send over the paperwork next week, he said. We're withdrawing from the joint project, effective immediately. I'm not comfortable moving forward. My father actually laughed, but there was no humor in it. You can't just walk away. We have contracts. We have investors. We're breaking ground in March. Then I'd suggest you start looking for another partner before March, Victor replied. I won't have the Lockhart name tied to this. Not after tonight. I thought my father was going to explode. I watched his throat work, his fingers clenched so tight around the stem of his glass I half expected it to shatter. Then he looked at me. Like this was somehow my fault. Chloe sniffed loudly, dragging everyone's attention back to her. She stared at the ring on the table like it had personally betrayed her, then at me with a hatred so sharp it almost felt hot. You did this, she hissed. You and your creepy tech husband. You think this makes you some kind of hero? You think people are going to feel sorry for you when they hear about this? She snatched up her phone with shaking hands. I swear to God, Amanda, if you try to play the victim online, I will ruin you. I will tell everyone what you're really like. I will post every pathetic thing you've ever texted me. You won't get to pretend you're perfect while you destroy my life. I felt something inside me click into place. You can post whatever you want, I said. But if you lie about me, even once, I will treat it like what it is, defamation. She rolled her eyes, but there was a flicker of uncertainty. Oh, please. You're not going to see your own sister. I will, I replied simply. Because I have all of this. I nodded toward the TV. Dates. IP addresses. Your deleted stories. Mom's filters. Backups of everything Lucas set up for you, because you wanted nothing to ever get lost. I met her eyes and held them. If you go online and claim you never got my invitations, I continued, I will respond with the clips of you tearing them up. If you say you didn't know about my wedding, I'll post your story about not letting Mom embarrass herself at my barn in the snow. If you suggest I'm making this up, I'll show everyone the email filter in Mom's account, created 2 days after your signature on that delivery slip. Her face had gone completely still. And if you even hint that I'm mentally unstable or lying, I added, I will let a lawyer handle the rest. including charges for intentional interference with mail and business correspondence. Dad flinched at the word business. He knew that territory. He knew what deleted emails and filters could mean in a legal context. You wouldn't, he said quietly. I didn't look at him. I won't have to, I answered. As long as she stops at threats and doesn't hit post. Chloe just sat there, phone in hand, mascara starting to smudge, staring at the sister she'd spent years training herself to underestimate and realizing, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't the one who should be afraid of a spotlight anymore. For days after that Christmas dinner, the doorbell rang in our Portland apartment while I was standing in the kitchen in Lucas's old hoodie, making coffee and trying not to think about my family at all. It was one of those gray Oregon afternoons when the radiator hissed, the window fogged up, and the apartment smelled like French roast and the cinnamon candle Lucas had lit to make it feel less like a tech cave. The bell rang again, sharper this time. Lucas looked up from his laptop at the dining table. You expecting anything? Just the crushing weight of generational trauma, I said, wiping my hands on a dish towel. No packages. He smiled a little, but there was worry behind it. We both knew there was only one group of people motivated enough to send something this soon. I opened the door to a courier in a navy jacket, shivering slightly, holding out an envelope that looked like it had opinions. Delivery for Amanda Bennett, he said. My heart did a small, stupid flip at hearing my married name from a stranger. I signed for it, thanked him, and shut the door with my thumb already tracing the return address. My parents' Chicago address was printed in the corner. Of course. The envelope was heavy, thick, the kind of paper you use when you want whatever's inside to feel important. My father's handwriting was on the front, my name in that stiff block print he uses for contracts and checks. Lucas watched me from the table. Want me to open it? I shook my head. No. If it explodes, let it take me out clean. I slid it open with a butter knife and pulled out a folded letter and a crisp rectangle of something that made my stomach drop even before I saw the numbers. The check was for $60,000. Made out to me. Signed in my father's careful blue ink. Amanda? Lucas asked, standing up now. I handed him the check without saying anything. He whistled under his breath. Well, he said, they finally admitted you exist. That's progress. I unfolded the letter. It was only a few lines, typed on my father's company letterhead like he couldn't bear to communicate with me without a logo at the top. Amanda, your mother and I regret the misunderstanding that occurred over Christmas. Emotions were high, and certain private matters were exposed in a way that was unfortunate for everyone involved. Enclosed is a check as a gesture of goodwill. We hope you will use it wisely and, more importantly, that you will refrain from airing family matters in public so as not to disrupt the remaining agreements and partnerships we still have with the Lockharts. We wish you and your husband all the best. Your dad. I stared at the ellipsis before the word husband. He couldn't even type Lucas's name. A few years ago, the version of me who sat under the Brooks Christmas tree and kept waiting for a miracle would have read this very differently. She would have seen the number first. 60,000. She would have translated that into student loans erased, a down payment on a real house, a safety net. She would have tried to convince herself it meant something, that maybe this was my father's awkward way of apologizing, of accepting, of stepping toward me. But now I folded the letter back up. I think he just tried to buy my silence, I said. Lucas's jaw tightened. Yeah, he said. That's exactly what this is. I carried the check and the letter to the small desk by the window where I keep our mail, scissors, chargers tangled in a bowl. Outside, the streetlights were flickering on even though it was barely past 3. $60,000. That kind of money could change a lot of things. But not the things I needed changed. I picked up the scissors. Lucas watched me, saying nothing, but I could feel his attention like a hand on my shoulder. Carefully, almost surgically, I cut the check in half. Then into quarters. Then smaller, thinner strips, until the $60,000 was just a pile of meaningless white and blue confetti on the dark wood. The sound of the blades sliding through paper was strangely satisfying. Clean. Final. When I was done, I spread the pieces out with my fingers, making sure the numbers were clearly visible in the chaos. Then I grabbed my phone and snapped a photo from above. The Brooks family group chat was still there on my screen, pinned at the top out of old habit. Family followed by 3 heart emojis my mother had added. Their last messages were from Christmas night. Mom telling everyone to cool down and remember we're family. Chloe sending a long paragraph about not talking to Amanda until she apologizes for humiliating us. My father telling us all to grow up. I attached the photo of the shredded check. My fingers didn't shake this time. In the message field, I typed, "I'm not selling my silence. You can have it for free. Consider this my farewell gift." I hit send. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Chloe, probably always first to respond, but I didn't wait to see what she wrote. I opened the chat settings and tapped leave conversation. A warning popped up. Are you sure you want to leave this chat? You will no longer receive messages from this group. Yes. And I left. Then I went to my contacts. One by one, I blocked them. Mom, Dad, Chloe. Even the landline number of the house itself, the one I'd memorized at 6 years old in case of emergencies. Each tap felt like snipping another invisible thread. When I was done, I put my phone face down on the table. Lucas came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my shoulders, resting his chin lightly on my head. You okay? He asked. I let out a slow breath I felt like I'd been holding since childhood. I think I said, for the first time. I might be. I looked at the pile of shredded paper on the desk, the useless pieces of what my father thought my silence was worth. Then I walked over to the trash can, lifted the lid, and dropped them in without ceremony. I didn't spend New Year's Eve in that cold mansion outside Chicago. Instead, I spent it in Lucas's parents' cramped, too warm apartment in Milwaukee, where the couch sagged in the middle and someone was always yelling from the kitchen, who finished the orange juice and put the empty carton back. There were kids everywhere. His sister's twins kept spilling lemonade on the coffee table, apologizing and then doing it again 5 minutes later. The older cousins were fighting over which movie to watch. Half of them wanted some Marvel thing, the rest demanded a cartoon. Lucas's mom tried to mediate while stirring a pot of chili. The TV was playing some New Year's countdown from New York, too loud, slightly off sync with the radio. It was chaos. The good kind. I sat cross-legged on the floor next to the coffee table, helping one of the twins rescue soggy puzzle pieces from a sticky puddle. Lucas walked by and kissed the top of my head in passing, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Sorry about the noise, his mom said for the 3rd time, laughing. We're not very Brooks about our holidays. That's kind of the point, I answered. Later, when we'd finally settled on a movie no one liked, but everyone could tolerate, Lucas's grandma shuffled over to me. She was tiny, with bright eyes and hands that shook a little when she moved. Come here, Amanda, she said. I have something for you. I followed her to the small hallway where the noise faded a bit. She opened an old jewelry box on the console table and pulled out a delicate gold pendant on a thin chain, the kind of thing you'd miss if you weren't looking closely. This was my mother's, she said. Every New Year, she used to touch it and say, for the girls who came after me. I gave one to Lucas's mom when she married into the family. Now it's your turn. My throat tightened. Are you sure? I asked. She smiled and, with surprisingly steady hands, fastened it around my neck. Of course, she said. You're a real granddaughter now. No hesitation. No conditions. Just acceptance. 10 minutes before midnight, Lucas tugged my hand and led me out onto the tiny balcony. The metal railing was freezing under my fingers, our breath puffed out in the air. Snow dusted the rooftops like powdered sugar. Somewhere down the block, someone was already setting off fireworks too early. Lucas tucked me into his side, his arm warm around my shoulders. Last chance, he said quietly. Any regrets? About all of it. I knew what he meant. Not just Christmas. Not just the confrontation. All of it. The invitations shredded over a trash can. The cruise for singles 30 plus wrapped like a joke. For a moment, images flickered through my mind like their own sad little slideshow. Chloe's smirk as she handed me that gift bag, my mother's voice calling my wedding pathetic, my father's check buying my silence instead of my place at their table. I wrapped my fingers around the pendant at my throat. No, I answered. I don't regret it. He looked down at me, searching my face. At all. At all, I repeated. I miss the idea of them. The family I thought I had. But those people? The ones who pretended I wasn't getting married, who tried to erase it and then pay me to keep quiet. I don't miss them. Not really. A cheer rose up from the apartment behind us. Someone had started the countdown early. 10, 9, 8. I'm not the Brooks spare daughter anymore, I said, more to myself than to him. I'm Amanda Bennett. I get to decide where I sit now. Who I sit with. His arm tightened around me. 7, 6, 5. I cut off the rotten roots, I whispered. And for the first time, it actually feels like something alive is growing around me. Sticky with lemonade. But real. 3, 2, 1. The apartment burst into shouts of, Happy New Year. Someone popped cheap champagne, one of the kids screamed at a confetti cannon, and Lucas kissed me, slow and sure, on a snow-dusted balcony in Milwaukee while my phone, for once, stayed utterly, beautifully silent. If you've ever had to cut off people who were supposed to love you just to finally breathe, tell your own story in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you want more true life stories like this, about the kind of family drama that hurts, but also the kind that finally sets you free.